Coercive and controlling relationships. What are they? How do you know you're in one? And what effect do they have on your mental health and your levels of stress? We'll be finding out shortly when I have a chat with expert Ruth Driscoll, who's a trainer and a mentor. But before that, I'm going to ask Ruth what it is that stresses her out on a day-to-day basis.
Hello there, Tricia. Thanks for inviting me along today. It's wonderful to be here. So stresses, that was one thing that was key, particularly when I was doing my stressful job as head teacher of an inner city primary school. And what I found was that after a day of dealing with some quite distressing circumstances involving children in crisis or in need, what I would do is to come home and to just switch my mind off and get my conscious mind from stopping chattering to myself, was actually to sit down and do a Sudoku.
Oh, nice.
So, it's really something that just switches off your conscious mind where you've got that chatter going on. So anything that you can do that helps you to do that just gives that conscious mind a little bit of a rest.
Yeah.
And if the conscious mind is constantly busy, then it's kind of blocking up your thought processes. So to clear your mind, anything that stops you from your mind from chattering because you're concentrating on something else entirely.
Focusing your mind on something that uses your mind.
Yes, exactly. It switches the mind off from the chatter that's going on.
The chatter.
The problem, if you like.
Good tip. Okay, so coercive and controlling relationships. What are they?
Well, sometimes, it's quite surprising that it's a little bit difficult sometimes to actually know if you are in a coercive controlling relationship. You often think perhaps, well, he's not hitting me, so it can't be an abusive relationship. But the fact of the matter is, any relationship where you are regularly being made to feel bad about who you are, what you think, what you feel, that's a coercive controlling relationship. Anywhere where your choices and your freedoms are being disregarded or undermined. So you'll know that you have that uncomfortable feeling inside yourself, but you'll be kind of justifying it in some way, shape or form, or putting the blame on yourself. But you need to listen to that little inner voice, because it's giving you the clues that something is not right here. And that's where you need to question further and ask deeper and think to yourself, well, this isn't what I want. This isn't the kind of relationship that I want to be in. This isn't the kind of relationship that I want to have with that person. So what's wrong?
So we've said, we've implied there that it's just women, but of course men can also be in a controlling and coercive relationship as well, although probably the stats are more towards the female side.
Yes, I've worked with men also.
Yes, but they don't start off that way, do they? They can start off beautifully.
Well, this is the other confusing part about it, because so often what happens is, if we're thinking about a romantic relationship now, with your personal partner, that person can start off seeming to be the absolute ideal person. And so that confuses you, because your heart is now engaged. You think, wow, I've actually met the person of my dreams here. But a few things to kind of be aware of is that often you will find that the situation moves quite fast to the point where you're in a more committed relationship with that person. Or the other thing that you may find is that that person arrives with their life in a seeming crisis situation. So they need help. And so, you're there, you're helping them to sort it out. And that makes you feel good because you're making this contribution to this person that you perhaps are thinking, well, you know, it's such a shame that this has happened to them or that they're in this situation.
It kind of makes a very deep bond very quickly, doesn't it, as well? So there's a very strong commitment. So you become their rescuer for their drama, whatever it is, real or not. And usually, for the most part, it's not even real, is it? It's just
it could be that it's not real, or it could be that you know, their life, you may notice a pattern of them constantly going into crises and or their life is in chaos, and often that chaos creates almost like the smoke screen that stops you from seeing through to what's really happening, because then you sort of justify what's happening with them. Oh, it's because they're under stress, it's because they're dealing with this.
Yeah.
And so it clouds you from getting that clarity around the kind of personality that they actually are.
Yeah. So what would you say, because that's kind of like a very seductive, romantic, falling in love as quick as anything phase, isn't it?
Yes.
What are the warning signs to look out for so that people are, so you've mentioned listening to that inner voice. So that's going on inside of you, but what would the person be doing that you might notice?
Okay, so some of the things to look out for. I mean, I always sort of, my antennae comes up when I see things moving fast in any person that I know their relationship. So even though it may be wonderful, but you've got to, you know, be alert, keep that antennae raised. The other thing to notice is, what do you know about other people in their lives? Past relationships, perhaps. Do you find that perhaps their friendship group is not particularly wide, or that the people that they're involved with because of work or business, rather than any deep friendships that they have? Could it be that you know, there are unexplained areas of their life, that timelines around certain events that they may have told you about are actually a little bit hazy if you start to question it. So being aware of what their background is. Now, they will always have a sob story about being the one who's been let down, who's been rejected within past relationships. Again, that will make you feel, oh, you know, you'll start to feel a bit sorry for what they've been through. And they'll be saying things like, you know, this is the first time I've really been able to talk to somebody about all of this.
Yeah.
You know, you're somebody who seems to really understand. Again, you know, these things, they may be fine. But if you're hearing things like that, and there are, they've got a past that seems to indicate a lot of failed relationships or lack of friendships, be aware of what may be the actual cause of all of those things.
And there is another element which is very disturbing, where they distance you from people that you care about, so that your relationship with your family might be compromised, for example. That's quite common, isn't it?
Yes, that isolating you is very common. And again, it's one of those things that can creep up on you. It can often be that perhaps if you're trying to make arrangements with family or friends, they'll have a situation that comes up that stops you from going, or stops them from going along with you to any of those events that you may have planned. It could also be that they're unpleasant to family members or your friends, probably behind your back, so that you're not actually seeing or hearing them doing that. But you will find that family members or friends are more reluctant to get together with you. Or they may try telling you as gently as they can, but you'll have some justification as to, well, you know, he or she behaved that way because and you'll find a reason to justify their behavior. But it's something that you find creeps up on you. And not only do you become isolated, but you start to lose a sense of who you are.
Yeah.
You start to become eroded as a person. You begin to reach that point where you think, I don't actually even recognize myself anymore.
Yeah. Or know what you like and what you don't like, because often there is, you have, they can dictate what you wear or belittle what you're wearing or how you've done your hair or whatever. So that's another way of eroding your identity, isn't it?
Totally. Yes. Yes. Your confidence about yourself, your confidence about decisions that you are making, all of that is undermined. Often subtly at first, but you know, when something is happening, it's like you know, the drip onto a rock will gradually erode you know, a hole in that rock. So all of those things erode you as a person. You lose confidence in who you are. You start to mistrust who you are.
Yeah.
There can even be that situation which is called gaslighting, where you actually begin to think that you are going mad, that you know, your whole sense of your own judgment is thrown completely askew, because that person is, you know, when you're with somebody who behaves in this way, who is manipulative and controlling, it's a little bit like they say to you, okay, we have a little demonstration here. Okay, look, this is reality. This is the shape of reality. Okay, do you get that? Are you so stupid you can't even recognize that? That's reality. That's what it looks like. Okay. Excuse me, what are you talking about? I said reality looked like this. What's the matter with you? You know, you don't even know your own mind, do you? Oh, no, excuse me. This is reality. Reality looks like this. What's the matter with you? You can't even see the truth about anything.
Do you know what's really interesting there, Ruth?
Yeah.
Is that was a role play, and I'm a strong character, and it affected me. Isn't it interesting? So when you've got the backdrop of this, I call it a seduction, because it's kind of little bit by little bit, they've got you, haven't they? And they manipulate and wheedle. And so when you've been weakened to such a point, that what just happened there will feel like an assault. And what's the phrase that I want? Disorientating.
Yes.
And cause you to question your sanity. Well, maybe it is me. Maybe I'm going mad. Maybe I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, when you think, you know, this relationship started off with you believing that this was the dream person, that this was the ideal relationship. And then when it starts to go sour, you know, there's almost like that panic sets in that you think, what's happened to this amazing relationship? And so you find yourself trying so hard to bring that back. But that's when you start falling for all of these tactics and manipulations that are used around you. And indeed, what happens is, if they see you starting to see through it, and you're starting to question, and you're starting to challenge, they suddenly become that ideal person again. And they're full of apology. I'm so sorry, you know, it'll never happen again. And so, of course, because what you had before seemed wonderful, you want so much for that to be back. So you forgive and you get back into it. And as soon as they feel you're back in that, what I call the grip of the control, that's when all the tactics and the manipulation start again. And you gradually, it's like you're going spiraling down, down, down into that place where you're in the worst possible place to be able to do something about it yourself.
So quite corrosive over time.
Very
in so many ways, and you can be deprived of financial support and all kinds, can't you? There are so many levels, and
even if you know, you're the one who's actually the more financially stable, you will find yourself being exploited, paying for things that, you know, things that they've got themselves into, or recovering debt for them. So which either, you know, whether you're deprived of the finance or you're exploited for the finance, that's another key area of the way in which this manipulation happens.
There are so many layers to this, including sexual abuse and physical abuse, verbal abuse, and mental abuse and financial abuse. So there's not one that's worse than the other. They're all very toxic to the individual experiencing them. So once the person notices that this is going on, what is the best way to deal with it?
Yes, I must admit, you know, from my point of view, because I went through an abusive relationship, and I thought I was going mad. And it was only when I came to realize, hang on a minute, everything that comes out of your mouth has either been manipulated, twisted, or exaggerated, that I started getting a sense of, you know, that maybe it wasn't me that was going mad after all. So I think, you know, for somebody who's in that kind of a relationship, it's starting to see the patterns of what goes on, so that you notice those times where they seem to be pulling away from you and criticizing you, and then suddenly everything is wonderful and normal again, and it's all lovey-dovey once again. Notice how those patterns keep repeating themselves, and then question more deeply those little, you know, those little kicks to your gut that you got as you know, as this relationship was developing, where you thought, hang on a minute, that doesn't feel right, but you glossed over it at that time. So now listen to what your gut is telling you, because those little kicks to your gut are there for a reason. They're telling you this is something that should not be happening. Something is wrong here. So if you feel that something is wrong, then almost certainly, yes, something is wrong. So, and I know, you know, fear is a big emotional controller.
My dog is making so much noise.
He wants to join in.
He's normally really quiet, but it's just, I'm so sorry. Oh, carry on.
That's all right, no worries. I got my earphones on, so I couldn't hear him. So yeah, it's, you know, that emotion of fear that controls you, and so it's recognizing what it is that is happening to you.
So that's the beginning. But once you've noticed that, what can you then do?
Well, what you can then do is, I would suggest, initially, you need to let other people know what's happening to you. Another of the things that tends to happen is, and because you feel ashamed and you feel confused by what's going on, you keep silent about it. But it's important now that you actually do let people know what's going on. Even if you feel now ashamed of yourself and you're worried about what people will think of you. I had actually managed to chuck out my abusive partner before I started opening up to people. But when I did do that, I really felt like it was almost felt like a wall of warmth that was surrounding me from friends who knew me, and, you know, obviously just didn't recognize me in those years that I was with him. But always be prepared to open up and to let people know. I always put a tiny caveat on that, because if you're still with that abusive person, be careful who you open up to, because if the abusive partner in your life is somebody who has that plausible and manipulative charm factor, they could also have influenced people who are your best friends. They could be making maybe your best friend feel, well, she doesn't understand me, but you do understand me. And so what you might find is that you speak to somebody that you think is somebody that is your best friend, but then you find that he has heard about it somehow. And so you're never quite sure how that happened. So if you suspect that your partner, can put all that charm across and make himself or herself seem like they're the victim in all of this, then I would do a little bit of a test run before you open up fully. In other words, give a little bit of information to that particular friend, something that's not going to adversely affect you too badly, but see if it comes back in some way through your abusive partner. Because if it does, then it means that they too have fallen into this manipulative trap.
Yeah.
So you do speak up, but you've got to be cautious as well.
I'm guessing that learning to be assertive is quite important, but there are also some people where that might be inflammatory to the relationship. What would you say to that?
Yes. So I use the word assertive very I always put it again a little caveat around this. And this is what the training programs that I teach, Tricia. It's what I call elegant assertiveness.
Lovely. I love that phrase. Thank you.
Yes, because elegant assertiveness means that you are able to safely put your point of view across, but underpinning everything that I teach is a very strong principle of respect and dignity.
Yeah.
Because what tends to happen is that you think in order to counter this beastly behavior that's being put against you, you almost have to square up to it. But that's not what works at all.
Yeah.
You maintaining your sense of dignity, you always behaving with respect towards that other person, that irrelevant of whether they deserve it or not. That's not the point here. It's about you being true to who you are, being congruent in terms of the person that you are, and really raising that bar of how this communication is going to happen between the two of you.
Yeah.
It's also about knowing how to master your emotional state, because what that toxic person in your life has become an absolute master at knowing which of your emotional buttons to press. They press that button and you react. So you've got to be really conscious of what you are doing when you're reacting to certain things. If it sends you into, shrinking and trying to sort of hide yourself away, or if it makes you feel like you want to yell and shout in anger, all of those things are triggering you. So important to learn how to master those things so that you can stay in that place of calm and actually be strategic in the way that you are operating your interactions with that person.
Yeah.
And that will make a huge difference.
I do a lot of work around assertiveness, and people, especially women, not exclusively women though, think it's aggressive to be assertive, but it's a world of difference.
Yes, it is.
So aggressive means I've got all the rights and you've got none. And other people are passive, which means you've got all the rights and I haven't got any. So it kind of people kind of just see those two. But assertiveness, you can be completely gracious. I like to say gracious assertiveness, where you say, actually, that's not how it happened. I happen to know that this is the reality. And okay, well, we'll agree to differ on that then. Something like that. So that the tone of voice is gentle, but also clear. Whereas somebody who's become fearful, they will have a physiology of timidity, which would fuel the negative behavior from them, but also the voice. So if the voice is low and calm, that communicates a level of gravitas, which is harder for them to argue with.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is the thing, the greatest strength that you have is calmness.
Yeah.
And it's what I call being actively calm. So it's not the calm of, oh, you know, we won't make a fuss about that. You know, we'll just
lovely distinction. Yeah.
But it's actually very active. It's very strong.
Yeah.
But it is calm. It is, as you say, there's a gentleness to it as well, and a respectfulness, but there's also that clear message through your body language, through your tonality, through the fact that you're not backing down, that shows, no, I'm not going to be pushed around anymore.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen here.
Ruth, thank you so much. I mean, this is such a massive area, and what we haven't done is talked about when it gets really ugly. So that might be something for another day, and you know, a different kind of thing. But hopefully, that helps people to understand whether or not they're in a coercive, controlling relationship, and some tips to help you to deal with that. Maybe another chat another day to take it a level deeper.
I would be very privileged.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tricia.
But now I always ask my guests if they got a book that they could recommend that they found insightful or helpful that might help other people too. And you've got a very special book in mind, haven't you?
Yes, I do. It's this book, in which I am a co-author. And so the book is, it's the Pay It Forward series, Notes to My Younger Self. This is volume 1, in which I have contributed my chapter. And the idea is that 18 women wrote their messages of hope and help for other women or other people, not necessarily just women. And the idea of the book is that there's a little section in it where you write your own message of hope and help in one of the boxes here, and then you pass that on to somebody else. So that's why we always say get 2, because one for you to keep, one for you to pass on.
That's a nice idea. I love that, because we do, well, hopefully we learn from experience. Otherwise we're missing a big trick, aren't we? And if we can kind of think about, well, what would I have said to my younger self? It really highlights that learning, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
Which we can easily ignore, but that brings it to mind more easily.
It's a really good way to sort of think, you know, if you've been dealt with a challenge in your life, what would have helped you to have known, or you know, how has it made you grow as a person because of what you've been through? So,
because I think it's impossible to get through life without challenges unless you do the calm, like everything's okay. It really is when it isn't.
No.
And you know, if I think of the things that have happened in my life, they've been some hideous things, but they've all helped me in some way, and they've made me strong, actually.
And the diamond's formed under pressure, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So when you can look at things in that way, it makes such a difference to your life. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much, Ruth. That's been really helpful and insightful. I hope you've all enjoyed it too. And if you have, do please like and share. You never know who this might help, especially in this very difficult subject. You might also want to put some notes below if you've got any special tips that you'd like to share with people as well. You take care now.